Welcome to the Voices of the Collective. I'm your host, Kristina Scaglione, and I have a guest today that is very special to me, Sonia Tully. Welcome, Sonia.
Hi, Kristina. My goodness, I am so grateful to be here today.
Thank you so much for making the time. You were super busy, but I really appreciate you coming on to the show today.
It is an honor and a pleasure. And I am not only so excited, but just so grateful to showcase not only the collective, but to share a little bit about what I do as well. Plus,
Yes.
I absolutely adore you. So, what a treat. What a treat.
I adore you too. And so where are you in the world right now so our guests can know?
Yeah, well, I am currently in New Orleans where I am based, and I just love this city and was moved here intuitively many, many, many years ago, but I am often all around the world. So it's a perfect question because you never know where I might be. I'm kind of where in the world is Sonia Tully?
Yeah, I tell people when I refer to you, to your business, I tell people she's a globetrotter, but she makes time for her clients wherever she travels. So, I say you're based in New Orleans or NOLA, but you could be anywhere at any point when we connect.
It's true. It's very, very, very true. And just within that of following the vibe and flexibility of and just even in the way that I work of we can be anywhere and be intuitively connected.
Absolutely. So, the first half of the interview is a little bit about your background and personal path. So, if you don't mind, I'm going to start into those curated questions that I just wrote for you only.
Let's dive in.
All
I'm
right,
so
awesome.
excited.
So, your journey started incredibly early at the age of 12 in a world where many people never get to experience. What was that like growing up in that environment, and how did that shape or view your intuition or shape your view of intuition and spirit?
Well, I'd say that my journey began at birth. I'm a big believer in what I know to be true and how I've been raised that we're all intuitive. I was really blessed to grow up in an incubator where intuition was my first language of vibration. So I grew up in a household where we talked about guides and spirit and vibes. And more than that, I started my formal esoteric training and learning how to do readings and mentoring at age 12, which started actually my family, my mom, Sonia Chocat, who is a wonderful teacher, author, threw me in the deep end at what we had a group called Translucent You. And that was a retreat in Hawaii. So my sister and I started formal esoteric training. And then when I was 12, we were leading a workshop. And then my mom said to both my sister and I want you to read for every single person at at the training.
Oh my
And
gosh.
yeah, I mean, I remember at the time I was like, oh, what? Me? Because it was just like, we were just like 11 and 12-year-old kids that were reading for all of these different adults. And we just put out a table and we just were thrown in the deep end of learning how to read. So, how was it for me? In one way, it was completely normal because it was a language that we grew up in of learning how to scan the energy field for dissonance, for energy that had us drop out of our intellect and into our heart space and using it as a place to connect. And most importantly, in my training and in what I know to be, not only know to be true, but what I really teach is to really teach people to be their own authority and of really excavating their own intuition as opposed to being in more of a top down old system of someone being a guru or having the answers. So even just within my training and framework and what I know to be true is, we first have our spirit that comes into our body the moment that we take our first breath, and it informs our whole energetic being. Now, life, because I was very lucky to grow up with language and affirmation, it was really normal. But for so many of us, it gets buried by life, by society, by conditioning, by all of these things where our first light gets buried. So my job and mission is always to be an excavator for you to be able to connect to that own pulse, to that own frequency, to put you in power. So not for my journey, I feel like that's where it really, really first started. And then, I am a 90s baby and grew up in a time where intuition was, and just even spirituality wasn't as normalized as it is now. And I was really sensitive. So for a really long time, I hid. I was like, at home, we talked guides and angels and vibes and all of it. But when I was at school, when I was in all these public places, I was really afraid of being called out or being weird. So I would just try and blend. Like I'm a chameleon. But I was like, no, I'm not different. I am the same as all of you. And truly. And then when I was in college, I was doing readings and mentorings in my car, but was so afraid of like telling anyone. And then there was the financial crash of 2008. And that really became my calling of really recognizing that so many of my friends and people that I love weren't equipped with the same toolkit as me. And that was really a call to arms to come out of this spiritual closet as a sense and just even starting to normalize. And what was so funny about it was that I found that once I came out, my worst fear was that everyone was going to be like, what does this mean? Actually, people gravitated to it like a light. They're like, me too. I have vibes. I have guides. I have angels. So it was my very first lesson in recognizing that often in my world, what we call our barking dog, your intellect, the part that gets critical, that gets very black and white, that likes to tell stories, that pulls from the past, that projects into the future, isn't true. It knows only what it knows. And so it was a very big aha moment of not solidifying in society to not rely not only on narratives, but to even hold my own vibration that becomes attractive because we can get so much into like lions and tigers and bears, oh my, that often is nowhere based in reality. It's just our imagination and a misuse of it.
Well, you kind of answered my second question, where I was going to ask if there was a specific moment where your intuition literally changed the direction of your life.
Many times.
I was thinking about the moment of your move from Chicago. When you moved from Chicago, I felt like that was possibly one of those moments. But you just shared one in college, so I guess.
Yeah, there was two. So that was the first one of really coming out of the closet because when I was in college too, I really thought I wanted to be a therapist because I love to help people and love to support them, truly.
Hello.
And I love therapy. I really believe that spiritual work and therapy go hand in hand because our intuition can help us excavate while therapy, and especially with people who are trained, can help us look at the framework, our patterns, our different things that go deeper. I am not a therapist. I am not a therapist. And I really believe that both of these worlds can help us build new patterns. Your spirit leads. Therapy helps to support, to uncover, to give us tools, to give us language, to give us framework to look at like our traumas, our patterns. So, that's where I was like, I first want to be a therapist. But for me, what I really was looking for were credentials to give it proof. I was like, I know what I'm talking about. And so once I liberated myself from that, I mean, I'm a therapy gal. I love therapy. I love therapists. I love good ones, truthfully, because I mean, there's just like in the spiritual world and in any other world, there's a lot of different breeds of cat.
Yep.
There was that. And then my other big moment that really changed the direction of my life, which you were alluding to, is, I grew up in Chicago. And right before I turned 30, I just got the intuitive hit that I needed to move. I was like, I got to get out of here, but I didn't know where. So I ended up following my family to Paris. And I was living in Paris and absolutely loved it. And I thought, I'm never going to move back to the States, and was invited on a vacation in Thailand from my now partner, Lane. And when we were in Thailand, we started dating. And so the following year, he was going to move to Paris. And this was January. So we have this plan. I meet him in Thailand. He's in the music industry. And we sit down over lunch. And he's like, Sonia, I have to tell you something. And I'm like, what? He's like, I have a really big tour and I can't move back to the States. I can't move to Paris. Would you ever think about moving back to the States? And I thought, absolutely not. And I was like, no. And he said, what about New Orleans? And out of my mouth popped yes before I thought about it. I said, yes, I'd never been. And so it was my intuition that said yes. My intellect said, we'll see how this actually goes. Probably not. But within 48 hours of saying yes, we were traveling with our friend who said, I actually have really, really, really good friends who have lived in this condo building. They bought their unit across the hall. They renovated it and they're looking for subletters. And So and he's like, great neighborhood, everything. So within 48 hours, we had signed a lease. And at this point, my intellect was freaking out. My intuition still said green light, go. And my family, even though very supportive, was kind of like, actually, they weren't that supportive. They're like, what are you doing?
I was going to say, I
Why are
remember
you
that part of the story.
following? Yeah, yeah. They're like, why are you following this man to New Orleans? Like, you love Paris, you love being here, but I had to follow the vibe. And once I got here, he was traveling a lot for work. And so for myself, I was like, I'm not going. I'm not making any friends. I'm not putting out any roots. I got like a couch from Craigslist from like a frat house because I was just so dead set on being there for a year. Even better than that, I had a friend, Andrea, who from college, who was like, oh, you're moving to New Orleans. I have a really wonderful friend that you guys should connect. And I thought, no, no new friends, no new friends. I'm here for a year. I'm traveling light. I'm not here to set roots. And, it's funny because, even I look back at my texts and I was like, thanks. And my friend Andrea also texted my friend, now my best friend Paulina, and was like, hey, there's this girl, Sonia. She's really wonderful. You guys should be friends. And she too was like, no new friends. So one day I'm sitting by the pool with my partner, Lane, and now these two people who live in my apartment across the hall. And I start chatting and, with a woman I don't know. And I get her and I'm like, she's cool. What's her name? Paulina. I put her phone number in my phone and lo and behold, it's my friend and connection. And it was her best friend. And now that is like my best friend. She literally lived across the hall from me.
Yeah,
So it was
in the mail for you.
yeah,
I send
yeah,
you stuff and you're not
yeah,
there.
absolutely. Absolutely. She's like my ride or die. Like she is my best friend. And it was a divine appointment. And now I can't imagine living anywhere else. But it was definitely a dark night of the soul because my head was like, what am I doing? I had to really go against the protests of my family. My partner is gone. I'm just in this place, work for myself. But I had to go to that deeper place in my heart to say, no, no, no. Even though it's so much chaos up here, I know that this is where I need to be. And that's part of intuitive living, it's trusting a deeper pulse that doesn't make sense to the head because your intuition picks up below what's information and will always point you to your true north and what resonates as true. So it's the way that we're naturally designed to live. And that is, I think, my biggest gift because I love New Orleans. I love
I
it.
love that story too. So thank you
Yeah.
for sharing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the same thing. It's kind of like living an intuitive life doesn't mean tripping the light's fantastic and that everything's great and fine. It's more about having a ballast and a safety and security within yourself of knowing what's in alignment and following that pulse moment by moment by moment by moment of constantly scanning the energy and checking it as opposed to getting caught up in emotions or overthinking or overwhelm that often has us really, really stuck, which
Yeah.
is where therapy can also come in great.
All right. So you come from a lineage of intuitive teachers. In what ways have you embraced that legacy and where have you forged your own path?
Well, I am a Sonia the third. I do my whole family, my Nana, my mom, my sister, I all do the same work. And just as, you know, it's a carrying on not only of a legacy, but a calling. I feel so grateful to provide the service and support that I do. Now, I would say just like everybody has their own spirit and expression, I'd say where I really differentiate and something that's really mine is intuition as a place and the importance of play. And play isn't something that's nonsense or nonsensical, but being able to explore the unexpected that allows us to connect dots that our minds would not, that allows us to have the spontaneity, the joy of being able to follow the flow. We all have had moments when you're like in something and you're like, ooh, this feels good.
Right.
Keep going. That's the same way of reading energy. And I find that once we can start to recover that part of ourselves that's inherently connects us to our spirit, to ourselves, that's infectious, that's magnetic, and it isn't, and it allows us to hold both, It's like we can still have things be serious, but also that we can always be connected to our curiosity, to and also to make sense of to almost fill our well in the micro when the macro can be really overwhelming. So that I would say is something that is very much me. I love play. I love nonsense. And I find that not only is it so important in making sense, but is a recovery of our authentic selves. And so I really am somebody who beats on that drum because a lot of times adults forget how to play.
Yeah, you're right.
We get so serious. We like squeeze our little spirit like right out of our body. We're like, nope, this is needs to be serious for it to be important. And humor, like, right? It's one of the many reasons I adore you and your teaching and just who you are is that sense of humor because that instantly breaks up the ego frequency of having things be like,
Yeah.
right?
Yes,
So you can laugh.
I love
Yeah.
humor. Love it.
Yeah, I know. I know. It always made me laugh.
Incorporated in all of my sessions. So, all right. That's perfect. Thank you. So, a couple things about your work. So, it emphasizes listening to the heart over the head. Why do you think that modern life makes this so hard? And what's the first step back into that heart space?
Hold on one second. I've realized that can you hear that?
I can.
Yeah. I'm like, I didn't even realize. I'm like, what? Excuse me. Rude. Rude. Has that been going the whole time?
Not that loud, no.
Okay, great.
Suddenly there was a brick in the dryer.
I know. I'm like, I can't. Usually I'm like in the whole other office. Okay, so let's go back. Yeah, go back to the question.
So your work emphasizes listening to your heart over your head. Why do you think modern life makes that so hard? And what's the first step back into the heart space?
Well, first, I'd say that our conditioning ever since the Enlightenment period, we've gotten really into learning about information as a way to keep us safe. Now, information can support your dreams, but it can't create them. So, what I truly believe is the head and the heart are meant to be the best of friends. Your heart is directly connected to your spirits. It's what connects, it is your magic. And if we can have our intellect in service, which can help us organize step by step, that is where these two become best friends and collaborators. Your spirit, your heart will say, this is what's true. This is what I desire. This is what I want to create. This is what I want to contribute. And you can feel your whole self be like, this is what I want. Like this collective. This is something that was you for intuitively guided, like a heart space. Like this is a dream, a vision that I have that I need to breathe into the world. And when you can really find that desire, it becomes like a flashlight. It becomes like a pulse of energy that we follow. And how our head helps us organize. It's like, okay, I have a desire to create this beautiful collective. I've got this. And then the head says, all right, let me get the permits. Let me find the people. Let me organize the little bitty things.
Right.
So that's how that conversation is meant to go. Now, the quickest way that we can get back to our heart space is name what you love out loud. Now, I love travel. I love puppets. I love connecting. I love dancing. I love good food. I love music. And as you say things out loud, you can start to feel the vibration elevate. So much in our world, we get so much caught in the negativity bias, has us get into, I hate, I don't like, what's not working. But as we start to change this frequency, love is one of the highest vibrations on planet Earth. And our spirit resides in our bodies. And as we start to give it voice, this is what I love, we'll notice that actually our whole vibrational field starts to shift and you can feel it. It's kind of like if you're in a conversation with a bunch of people who are just talking negative, you kind of feel your whole self compress.
Yeah.
But when we can talk about what it is that we love, what connects, the vibration lifts. So it's a really easy way to start to get back to your spirit. And most importantly, like your intuition resides in your body. So pay attention. As you start to speak, just start to feel that energetic shift. And you'll feel it. This is our throat, is the chimney to our heart space, helps us connect these two parts instead of getting into overwhelm of trying to figure it out. So that's one of my quickest tools. I'm like, name it and go fast like a ball. And then just feel how that feels in your body from the before and the after. Pay attention.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. When I work with clients and I ask them to start to try to figure out what they want to manifest, and I ask them, like, what is it that they like? What do they want to attract? And I always hear first everything they don't like.
Yeah.
So then the next thing I usually say is, okay, well, we're halfway there. So now we know what you definitely don't want. So they'll tell me what you do want. And so it's not what we're not naturally inclined to pick what makes us feel full. We pick
Totally.
what we're in conflict with. So I love that. Name it.
Yeah. And more, another tool that I often give my clients, it's, our hands are connected to our heart space. So one of the ways that we can start to connect to your spirit, your self, your however you want, whatever language you want to use. You rub your hands together. Your hands are connected to the heart space, and then you can just gently pull them apart. And then you can just start to feel the dance of energy between your hands. And you put one hand on your heart and one hand in your belly. And then just take a deep breath into your nose. Imagine like you're breathing up through your feet and exhale like you're exhaling 10 birthday candles. And then just gently close your eyes and just let your attention drift from your head to your heart and just letting your breathing return to normal. Sometimes the sigh feels good. And you'll notice that the chatter starts to quiet as we start to connect back to home number one and our own spirit. And then you go one step further, start to name the energy that you feel. Is it bright? Is it grounded? Is it playful? And say it out loud. And that's a really beautiful way that we can start to connect back to our home number one, back to our own vibration and frequency that gets us out of the heart space that starts to anchor it in. Because a lot of times with intuition, people are like, it's all up here. It's a lot of information. Just as you're talking about with your clients, it's like, I hate, I don't like, but you can feel the vibe, It's like, all right, we're all here. We're not here. We're not present. We're not paying attention, which is one of my favorite definitions of intuition too. Pay attention.
So you said intuition is the voice of the spirit and divinely connected. How do you teach others to distinguish real intuition from wishful thinking or ego narratives?
Easy peasy. How does it feel in your body? Right? Truly.
Yeah.
We're talking energy. We're not talking information. So first, our ego gets black and white, right, wrong, critical, all or nothing. And how it feels is tight. It talks a lot. It'll be the little rotisserie chicken on a spit. And you can see it. You can truly see it if you're present in front of somebody like a client, they come in for their first session and I'm like, I hate this and they're this and they're all buttoned up and the energy is contracted. So that's even that tool that was hand on our heart, hand on our belly, just taking a breath, anchoring in is just noticing how it feels. So we have our intellect, our ego stories, what repeats. I'm always alone. No one helps me. Because they go over and over and over and over again. They're really familiar. And like I said, tight, like wearing a pair of pants. Now, when we start to go to our intuition, which resides in our body, it's connected to the present moment. It resonates as true. It's not going to tell you what you want to hear. It will tell you the truth. And your whole body expands. And a good way to even start to think about this is think about the intuitive moments in your own life. You may have been a part of the woulda, coulda, shoulda club where you're like, I knew it. I knew that person. Like I knew it. I knew it. I felt it because there was something in you, in your body that was communicating with you. So as we start to pay attention, home number one is our physical body. That's your intuitive barometer. When we're in our head, it talks a lot. Our breath gets cut off, repeats. That's where we can start to slow things down. Wishful thinking is different because wishful thinking also is we get very fixed on an outcome. Energy flows. So when we're in wishful thinking, oftentimes what I see with my clients and working with people for a long time is it's not grounded in reality.
Okay.
There's no flexibility, right? So I can think of, for example, I had a client that I chatted with a while ago who really wanted a relationship more than anything in the whole wide world. And I find that when we really want something, when emotion comes in, they come in like waves that tell us what's important to us. I had a client who really wanted a relationship. So she met a gentleman on Tinder and they go on a date and everything in it was no go. But what she wanted so bad was a relationship that she threw away every single red flag, including him saying, I'm not that available for a relationship, and just continued on that path kind of like with blinders on until she had a moment of, wait a minute, this really isn't working. Of where we can see our own will, because a lot of times our own willpower of like, I want this, it has to look like this or be this, that has us ignore our vibes. And we do that often because we don't want to be disappointed.
Yeah.
I find that a lot of times our biggest roadblock to intuition is not wanting to be disappointed. And what happens is we close ourselves off to bigger places of support that can actually lead us to something greater than our minds could even ever bring in.
Yeah.
So that's where we can even just start to pay attention of like, how do I feel? Am I available for guidance? Am I available to hear something outside of what's going on or what I want? Can I open up to something greater?
Yeah. Well, since you mentioned working with clients, we'll transition into your transformational work section of questions. So, your Inside Out mentoring program frames transformation as moving beyond doubts and self limiting beliefs. How does intuition play a role in healing those psychological patterns?
Well, I'd say your spirit is, no matter what, your spirit is what connects. And it gets buried in our world. So when we can start to connect to our spirit, to that life force that animates you. If you've ever been around a brand new baby, it's like their spirit first comes into their body.
Yeah.
There's this little incubation period where they feel like they haven't totally landed. Or if you've ever been around somebody who's passed, you really realize that our bodies are spacesuits
Mm-hmm.
for our spirit as we walk on planet Earth. And so, for me in my work is teaching people first and foremost of putting them into the authority of being able to pay attention to these different vibrational notes. I know my spirit. I know who I am. I know my gifts. I know that place that develops a catcher's mitt between ourselves and life and gets us outside of overthinking, wishful thinking, and gives us a deeper place of security and safety that helps to train our mind to be in service to our intuition. Because we often listen to a lot of nonsense and blah, blah, blah from other people, constantly comparing, constantly overthinking, constantly doubting ourselves. When we come back to that pulse, it's like, okay, I trust my vibes. I trust myself. I trust myself moment to moment. That naturally gets us out of trying to figure it out or overwhelm and back into the flow of life.
Perfect. You explained it perfectly. With summarizing what somebody might experience, if you could summarize what somebody might experience from your mentoring from the beginning till their breakthrough.
Well, I'd say the first thing that it really depends because my mentoring isn't one size fits all. But I'd say the very first thing is really giving people a language and a framework to connect to their own intuition. I am a guide. I am a guide. So from that, it's where we can start to first, at the very beginning, know these three distinct energies. What's my head? What's my ego intellect? And knowing that barking dog, as I would say, the part that gets critical, the part that gets loud is trying to help you. It's not, and it's used crappy language, and it's kind of like death by a million paper cuts. But if we can just start to see it as such, oh, this is something that's trying to keep me safe instead of the enemy, then we can instantly have more compassion and more spaciousness for ourselves. Second, then we can start to pay attention to the frequency of emotions that come in like waves. This tells us what's important to us, what it is that we
Right.
value that also comes in, then our head makes a story. So then we can say, oh, these are emotions that then connects us to our spirit, which is
Right.
the voice of our intuition, which guides us moment to moment to moment to moment. And when that becomes our North Star, when that becomes what becomes the driver, then we can start to use that to intentionally create. What would I love to experience next? How can I use this in a grounded way? What does my intuition say? Because it's not about this or that. It's a way of living, of following a flow and a pulse moment by moment by moment by moment that goes from anything from restaurants to creating magnificent things to relationships. It is your superpower. So when we can start to excavate that, then we start to embody that as our safe place of how we are. That then is just a whole new way of being. So it's like whether you want a relationship or a business or a community or write a book or build a garden or anything, it doesn't have to be a big deal, but it's a return to self. And that also connects us to such a beautiful place of support. It's like you have support always and in all ways, as long as we can learn how to connect and listen. And for me, recognizing that you're never alone because it's felt, it's not a thought, is one of the most comforting, beautiful gifts of trusting yourself, trusting the moment, trusting life.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Thank you for explaining all of that.
You're welcome.
So you have a really a fun podcast that you have with your mom and your sister about intuitive life. It's called It's All Related. I love it.
Yes,
How is
yes,
that
yes.
how is that conversation different than the one-to-ones that you have?
Well, what we talk about is really, I find that a lot of times in spirituality, it can be not that grounded. It really is. Like we have our bumps, we have our bruises. So this is often just like pulling up a chair at our dinner table. This is how we talk all the time. We're talking energy, we're talking guides, we're talking vibes, we're talking our stories, we're talking about getting into flow and having a community is also so important because so many people who are intuitive often feel very alone in the world. So it's all related as really a peek into my family life. And mentoring for me is very different because it's more intentional. It's way more, it's one on one of where we connect and meet you where you're at, where it's a collaborative container of where I like to give tools to have you have a felt experience that's transformative as opposed to more information because we're in information overload.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a partnership and it's a deeply healing and exciting, supportive, nurturing container. I love working with people in all ways and always. But mentoring is really wonderful because it's a deep dive and I meet you exactly where you're at. It's not a like, and then this week we're gonna work on our feet. I don't know, week
Well,
3.
yeah.
I mean
No,
being
no.
grounded, but
Yeah.
truly.
I would say that it's refreshing to I work with Sonia one to one. I found her a few years ago accidentally. It's kind of a funny story. I don't have time to share it today, but I work with her. So as a licensed clinical social worker, a psychotherapist that specializes in trauma, I found a lot of value working with Sonia as one of her mentees and learning how to listen to my intuition at a time in my life where I couldn't hear it. So I value that. And I also value that you stay within your scope of
Mm,
practice, which is important to mention because I don't come across enough coaches that are in the intuitive world that stay within their scope. So
yeah.
I think it's important that, and you've mentioned it many times, that you're a fan of therapy. So I think it's an extra accolade that I'm giving you that you're able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. But the truth is that in intuitive work, whether it's my readings, most even readings, but even mentoring, people come. I'm usually the last line of defense, not the first. Yeah. People don't usually like, I want to get a reading. Usually it's like, I have exhausted every single other possibility and like, I need help. So with that, we have to recognize that we work in an emergency room. And it's really important, I find, as coaches, as, in spiritual work, first that you do your own work.
Mm-hmm.
Don't ask other people to do things that you yourself haven't put 2 feet in. And most importantly, if you're so big on wanting to help other people without doing your own stuff, I find that that's often our own like inner wounded child that wants to be of service instead of actually being in alignment that can use a team approach, which is one of the reasons why I love just the collective is that it does take a village. We are community people connecting to our intuition, to our spirit, to have, like your beautiful work that you do of helping excavate trauma and different things that is something that I'm not trained in and that is really important to have the care and the attention be supported holistically across the board.
Yeah.
Body work, of learning how to get back into our bodies, being nurtured, that I find is one of the most healing things in the work that we do.
Absolutely. I want to mention this other thing that you've done, which I also have here in the waiting room, but you co-wrote a book with your sister about intuition.
Yeah.
What's one lesson from that book that you wish more people would adopt?
I would say the first thing of just recognizing yourself as spirit. Very simple. You are a spirit in a body. And that if you can just start to shift your perception from just the appearance of what we see, that's the least reliable, to starting to connect to we are one spirit. The way that I often like to explain it to people is imagine that there is a field of grass and there is dew. It's early morning. There is dew on every single piece. There is one sun, and that sun reflects on each individual blade of grass, each dewdrop differently. And that's like how we are in the world. Each of us, it's one spirit, but it's expressed differently. So even of just having that curiosity that allows us to see more deeply, it's kind of like if you ever gone snorkeling. You know, if you're swimming on the surface and then you put the goggles on, then you look down, and all of a sudden it's like there's a whole world right underneath our eyes that is available if you choose to look at it.
Yeah, that's perfect.
And also writing is hard. Writing a book is hard.
Yes, it is. I'm still writing mine, so I totally understand.
I can't wait to read it.
I know.
That's what I have read. I can't wait to see it out. I know. I was going to say I read it. I was like, wait, actually, the liar. I've read it. I can't wait for it to be marched out into the world because we need it.
We have to finesse it a little bit, I think. So, okay. So how do you balance spirituality and grounded business growth? Because I feel like we're in a world where people demand either or instead of both. So without having to choose one, how do you blend them?
Well, for me, as an intuitive person, which I said, we're all intuitive. It's just a way of life, period. Now, this is where we talk about the intellect and our intuition as friends. You know, if you're as high as you go is as deep as you need to root. If we just are working in the spiritual world of tripping the light's fantastic, that's where we lose our discernment, our ability to be grounded, our ability to be of service. And often it's like a mirage. I mean, we've all met people who are like, and I mean, having grown up behind the curtain of Oz and just in this world, you can feel it. There are a lot of people who have a lot of good language, but there's nothing that supports what they're saying. So in being grounded, that's where the intellect can help us look at what's immediately in front of us and how we can use that step by step by step to create. Even as you were saying at the very beginning, it's like, what do I want to create? And then how do we show up as a discipline that comes from the word disciple to something that we love as an act of devotion, something that we love and that we want to create. And that is very much in the earth plane. It's like, okay, you want to create a book. Well, then show up and sit down and write.
Right.
And that's where being grounded, being organized is also really important for our intuition. Or intuition requires organization. What do you want guidance on? Are you available?
Hire Sonia for coaching.
I mean, you can hire me for coaching. I mean, yeah, let's get you organized. Like, let me help you start to be able to parse apart and differentiate. But, you know, again, my job is to be a liberator, because anything that creates dependency is a no go. You know, like, we know. If we can create the space to listen, you know what works for you and what doesn't. As long as we out of that mental confusion that constantly has us be like, well, is it this or is it this? Or I don't know. It's like, just even pause and take a breath. You can start to slow down the overwhelm.
Perfect. So what drew you to join Limitless Integrative Wellness in the
first place? Yeah. Dorio. But as I was saying, one thing that we are really missing in the Western world are collaborative communities. We need it. We hear a loneliness epidemic throughout. And so and trusting, for example, for me, I don't put my name on things that I don't know, right? Because there can be a lot of smoke and mirrors and false promises within any world, whether it's shopping, whether it's spirituality, whether it's whatever. So knowing and trusting you and the caliber of having a community of people that can work with you, mind, body, spirit, that then becomes the way that we're meant to live. Because when it's spirit to spirit, it's like, what can we create together? When it's ego, it's constantly fighting for who's on top. When in reality, when we have that as a different framework, it's like all ships rise with the tide. Yep. So, it's working on spirit, then working in therapy of finding new tools and different ways to help heal our trauma, having different body work or, modalities of working with our physical bodies, our doctors, to have people who actually listen to us and who can support us. I mean, it's a whole different way of being that puts you in the driver's seat of your life. And that is something that I find is so important because so many of us default to authority just because it's how we've been conditioned and trained in society.
You're right. You're right. And intuitive work fitting into Limitless is extremely important because it's one of the layers that is almost never included in collaborative work. So the fact that I am even able to offer intuitive work as part of the collective is huge. It's huge that I can even say, like, we have a team. You
Yeah.
can pick
Yeah.
anybody
Truly.
on this team.
Truly.
Yeah. So
No, I love it.
if
As you're
someone,
saying, Great, go ahead. I'm
I was
getting
gonna say if
excited.
some yeah,
I'm
well, go
like
ahead.
jumping in. Go
I
ahead.
was
Go
gonna
ahead.
say, if someone is intuition curious but skeptical, what would you say to them?
Um, I would first just say skeptical. I'm like, that's your path. Just notice the pulse of energy. I'm not here to convince you. I have been death by a million paper cuts. For me, if somebody's intuition but curious, I say, let's have an experience and then you decide from there. You can make an informed decision through experience. And look, no, it's no sweat off my back. I'll meet you where you're at.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I can lead a horse. I mean, there's so many times when I was younger, I was like, I have to defend and all this. And I'm like, you decide for yourself by what's felt.
Yeah, perfect. I love that answer. Sonia, how can people find you?
You can find me on all sorts of things by my website, soniatully.com. You can find me through Limitless. You can go to my YouTube channel, Sonia Tully, or Instagram, Sonia Tully Official. I have all sorts of different ways. You can download my free spiritual toolkit. I have all sorts of different offerings at different price points to meet you where you're at, whether you're into curious. I love this. I'm like, into curious, or if you're seasoned. So come have an experience, and I would love to support you and connect with you. It's my greatest joy.
And the podcast, how can they find that?
It's all related on all streaming services. You can also, all streaming services, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Come and get a vibe.
Yeah, so we have a link on Limitless's website under our collective to buy Sonia's book, to work with Sonia, or to find her podcast. So you can go over there and find everything there, or you can go to soniatully.com, like she said. But thank you so much for joining us today. Sonia, I absolutely adore you. Love you so much.
I adore you. I'm so proud of you. I love this. It's an honor. It's an honor. It's an honor. It's an honor to be with such incredible women. And I just adore you. And this is such a beautiful service that you're offering to the world. And I am honored to be one ray within that beautiful sunshine of just light.
You're awesome.
So are you.
Today.
Game recognized game. Love you.